The transport shuttle's engines whined as it touched down on Draken 7, kicking up red dust that settled slowly in the thin atmosphere. Lily pressed her face against the window, watching the massive dome structures of the Galactic Conservation Preserve emerge from the haze. Her mother sat beside her, reviewing files on a datapad, occasionally sighing in that way she had started doing after Dad died. Everything looked alien here. The sky was purple instead of blue. The grass equivalent grew in spiral patterns. Even the air tasted different when they stepped off the shuttle, processed and recycled through filters that hummed constantly in the background. Doctor Rebecca Bennett squeezed her daughter's hand. New start, remember? We talked about this. Lily nodded, though she did not feel ready for new starts. She wanted old starts, the kind where Dad came home from work and lifted her onto his shoulders. The facility director, an insectoid creature named Administrative Rel, greeted them with clicking mandibles that the translator rendered as forced politeness. His compound eyes gleamed with something Lily could not name, but instinctively disliked. He gestured with 4 arms toward their assigned quarters, explaining protocols and meal schedules in a voice that buzzed like angry wasps. Their new home was a small apartment carved into the preserve's main structure. Gray walls, functional furniture, windows that looked out over endless enclosures housing creatures from 1,000 dying worlds. Rebecca immediately buried herself in unpacking and reviewing her new responsibilities as the facility's xenobiologist. Lily waited exactly 1 hour before slipping out to explore. The preserve was enormous, a labyrinth of corridors connecting dome habitats. Through reinforced glass, she saw things that should not exist outside nightmares and dreams. A creature made entirely of crystallized sound. A family of 6-legged mammals with fur that changed colors based on emotion. A flock of beings that seemed to exist partially in another dimension, flickering in and out of visibility. She walked for nearly an hour before finding the forgotten section. The corridor lights here were dimmer, many burned out completely. Dust covered the floor in thick layers, unmarked by footprints. The air recyclers coughed and wheezed, struggling with their work. Lily followed the sound of something breathing, heavy and slow, from behind a massive door marked with warning symbols in 12 languages. She could not read most of them, but the ones in English were clear enough. Danger. Extreme caution. Authorized personnel only. Sedation protocols active. The door had a viewing panel. Lily had to stand on her toes to see through it. Inside the dark enclosure lay a dragon. At least, she thought it was a dragon. It looked like pictures from her storybooks, but wrong somehow. The creature was huge, perhaps 20 feet long, covered in scales that should have gleamed but instead looked dull and cracked like dried mud. Heavy chains attached to its legs, connected to anchors in the floor. Automated feeding tubes hung from the ceiling, some leaking nutrient paste onto the ground where it had dried into crusty puddles. The dragon's eyes were open, staring at nothing. Empty. Defeated, Lily's heart cracked open. She found an access panel beside the door and, after fumbling with the controls, managed to trigger the intercom. Hello. The dragon did not move. Can you hear me? I'm Lily. I just got here with my mom. She's a doctor for animals. Well, not just animals. Aliens too. You're an alien, right? Though I guess here I'm the alien. Still nothing. She tried again the next day, and the day after that. Each time she talked about random things. Her favorite foods, the book she was reading, how much she missed Earth's yellow sun. The dragon never responded, but something in those empty eyes seemed to focus when she spoke. On the 4th day, she brought a sandwich from the cafeteria and tried to figure out how to get it inside the enclosure. The feeding tube system had an input port. She mashed the sandwich into paste, gagging a little, and loaded it into the mechanism. The dragon's head lifted slightly when fresh food, not recycled nutrient sludge, dropped into its feeding trough. On the 7th day, she heard voices and hid behind a storage container. 2 of the Churuk caretakers scuttled past, their translator units chattering. Specimen D, 447 damaged another feeding unit, one said. Violent creature. Unpredictable. We should have euthanized it years ago. Too expensive to dispose of properly. Better to keep it sedated. Did you increase the dosage? Yes. It will barely move now. After they left, Lily stayed hidden for a long time. Shaking with anger, she did not fully understand. When she finally approached the viewing panel again, the dragon was looking directly at her. Their eyes met. Something passed between them. Recognition maybe, but just the acknowledgement that they had both lost something essential and were trying to survive in a place that did not want them. They call you Specimen D, 447, Lily whispered. That's not a name. Names are important. My dad taught me that. He said a name is the first gift we give someone. The dragon blinked slowly. You look like ashes, Lily continued. Gray and sad. But ashes can have fire underneath. My dad told me that too. So I'll call you Ash. Is that okay? The dragon, Ash, made a sound. Not a roar. Something softer. Almost like a question. Lily smiled for the first time since arriving on Draken 7. I'll come back tomorrow, Ash. I promise. And the day after that. And the day after that. You're not alone anymore. She meant it. Somehow, looking at this forgotten creature in its prison, Lily understood what her mother had been trying to explain about healing. You cannot fix what was broken by yourself. You needed someone who refused to give up on you. Ash needed that someone. Maybe Lily did too. 3 weeks passed before Rebecca discovered what her daughter was doing. Lily had developed a routine. Every afternoon while her mother worked in the laboratory analyzing samples and reviewing conservation protocols, she visited the Forgotten Wing. She brought food she saved for meals, books she read aloud through the intercom, and endless stories about Earth and her father and what family meant. Ash listened. At first he just stared, but gradually something changed. His eyes began tracking her movements. His head lifted when she arrived. Once, when she told a particularly funny story about her dad trying to cook pancakes and setting off the smoke alarm, she could have sworn she saw the corner of his mouth twitch. The breakthrough came on a rainy afternoon. Not real rain, but the facility's weather simulation system testing its precipitation protocols, drumming artificial water against the dome overhead. Lily sat with her back against the viewing panel, reading from a book about dragon legends from Earth. In the old stories, dragons guarded treasure, she said. But I think that's backward. I think the treasure was guarding the dragons, giving them purpose. Everyone needs something to protect. A sound came through the intercom. A voice, deep and rough like gravel scraping against stone. No treasure here. Lily jumped to her feet so fast she dropped the book. You can talk. I mean, I knew dragons were smart, but I did not know if you could actually. When did you learn Galactic Common? Silence stretched for a moment. Then, always understood. Never had reason to speak. You have a reason now, Lily said quickly. You have me. I want to hear everything. What's it like being a dragon? Do you remember your home world? What do you dream about? Ash moved closer to the viewing panel. Even through the thick glass, Lily could see the chains restricting his movement, the way his scales had lost their natural luster. Remember nothing. Brought here as egg, raised by machines. Dreams are empty. The sadness in his voice made Lily's chest hurt. She placed her palm against the glass. That's going to change. I promise. You're not just a specimen. You're Ash. And Ash deserves better than this. Over the following days, their conversations grew longer. Ash spoke in short, careful sentences as if in used to forming words. He told her about the loneliness of never seeing another of his kind, about the Chura caretakers who treated him like a dangerous object rather than a living being, about the fog of sedatives that made everything feel distant and unreal. Lily researched dragons obsessively, using her mother's access codes to dig through the Galactic Conservation Database. She discovered that dragons were highly social, highly intelligent, and deeply empathic. They bonded intensely with their family groups and needed mental stimulation to thrive. Everything the preserve was not providing. She confronted her mother one evening over dinner. Did you know there's a dragon in the East Wing? And that he's been kept in terrible conditions for decades. Rebecca set down her fork. Lily, you should not be in the restricted sections. He has a name, Ash, and he's not dangerous. He's scared and lonely, and no one cares. The creature you're talking about has a history of violent outbursts. The safety protocols exist for good reasons. He's violent because people hurt him. Lily's voice rose. The caretakers increase his sedatives instead of actually helping. They talk about him like he's a broken machine. Would you be calm if you were chained up and drugged and left alone in the dark? Rebecca was quiet for a long moment. Her daughter's passion reminded her of her late husband, who had never been able to ignore suffering either. "Show me," she finally said. That night, Rebecca reviewed Specimen D 447's files. The medical records were appalling. Malnutrition, untreated injuries, psychological evaluations that recommended euthanasia over rehabilitation. The facility had essentially written Ash off as unsalvageable and warehoused him. She visited the enclosure the next day, expecting to find the dangerous creature described in the reports. Instead, she saw her daughter sitting cross-legged in front of the viewing panel while a dragon carefully positioned himself on the other side, listening to her read with an expression of intense concentration. "He's been alone his whole life," Lily said without looking up. "Dad used to say that everyone needs someone who sees them, really sees them. Nobody's ever looked at Ash and seen anything but a problem." Rebecca watched her daughter and the dragon, separated by reinforced glass but connected by something stronger. "What do you need me to do?" Lily's face lit up. "Help him, please. Use your authority to get him proper food, medical treatment, time outside this horrible cell. Prove to Administrator Vrel that Ash deserves a real chance." It took 2 weeks to overcome the bureaucratic resistance. Vrel argued that changing protocols for one specimen set dangerous precedents. The Churek caretakers complained about additional workload. The facility's safety board demanded extensive justification. Rebecca provided it all. She documented the medical neglect, cited Galactic Conservation Ethics Guidelines, and threatened to report the facility to the Oversight Committee. Slowly, grudgingly, permissions were granted. The day Ash's sedative dosage was reduced, he seemed confused by the clarity returning to his mind. The day his chains were lengthened to allow more movement, he stood fully upright for the first time in years. The day Lily's mother personally delivered vitamin-enriched food designed for his species' dietary needs. A small patch of scales on his shoulder began showing hints of deep red beneath the gray. Progress came in small steps. But it came. The real test arrived when a piece of equipment malfunctioned in Ash's enclosure, a lighting array coming loose and falling. Lily happened to be there, inside the safety corridor for the first time, helping her mother with medical scans. The array fell directly toward her. Ash moved faster than his weakened body should have allowed, positioning himself between Lily and the falling metal. The equipment crashed against his back with a sound like a gong. He absorbed the impact without flinching. When the dust settled, Ash turned his head to look at the girl behind him. "Protected," he said simply. "Treasure." Lily wrapped her arms as far around his scaled leg as she could reach, crying into his knee. "You're my treasure too." Rebecca watched from the doorway, understanding finally what her daughter had known from the beginning. This was not a specimen. This was family. Winter came to Draken 7, or what passed for winter under the climate control domes. The facility reduced the ambient temperature by 5 degrees and adjusted the lighting to mimic shorter days. Lily found it depressing until Ash mentioned he actually preferred the cooler air. She had moved a cushion into his enclosure permanently now, with her mother's reluctant permission. The safety protocols had been updated. Ash wore a monitoring collar that tracked his stress levels and vital signs. If anything spiked dangerously, automatic barriers would deploy. So far, the collar showed nothing but calm contentment whenever Lily visited. Today she brought a tablet loaded with images and videos. "I want to show you what family looks like," she said, settling onto her cushion while Ash curled around her like a living wall. She started with her own family photos. Her father smiling at a beach, building sandcastles with a tiny version of Lily. Her mother laughing at some forgotten joke. "This is Dad. He died in an accident last year. A transport malfunction. He was a teacher. He used to say that family is people who choose to show up for each other every single day, even when it's hard." Ash studied the images with intense focus. "Your father had wisdom. You show up for me. Every day. Because you're worth showing up for." Lily swiped to videos of various alien species. "Look, this is a Centauran family unit. They raise their young communally. And these are Stellarians. They're born in groups of 7 and stay connected telepathically their whole lives. Family means different things everywhere, but the core is the same. Taking care of each other. She showed him elephants from Earth, wolves raising pups, birds feeding their young. Then she found videos of dragon-like creatures from other worlds. Ash watched those with something like hunger. Do you ever wonder what your family was like? Lily asked softly. Every day. Wonder if I had siblings. Wonder if parents mourned the egg taken before hatching. Wonder who I would have been if raised properly. Ash's voice carried a weight of loss, but cannot change the past, can only try to understand what was missed. Lily leaned against his foreleg. My dad used to play this game with me called 20 Questions. I'd think of something, and he'd have to guess what it was. We'd take turns. It was silly, but it made us laugh. Want to try? They played for hours. Ash was terrible at it initially, his questions too broad or oddly specific, but he learned quickly. When he finally guessed correctly that Lily was thinking of shooting star, he made a sound that might have been laughter, deep and rumbling. Again, he demanded, enjoy this game. Enjoy learning to think differently. It became their ritual. Every visit included at least one round of 20 questions, with Ash growing steadily better at the lateral thinking required. Lily taught him other games too. Word association, riddles, story building where they took turns adding sentences. Meanwhile, Rebecca worked behind the scenes. She filed formal complaints about the preserve's treatment protocols, documenting case after case of neglect. The Churrick caretakers, unable to defend their actions, were reassigned to less sensitive duties. New staff arrived, including a human veterinarian named Dr. Patel, who specialized in exotic species rehabilitation. Dr. Patel examined Ash thoroughly, clucking her tongue at the findings. Chronic malnutrition, muscle atrophy from restricted movement, psychological trauma from isolation. This creature should barely be functional, yet his recovery is remarkable. What changed? Rebecca nodded toward her daughter, who was coaching Ash through a vocabulary exercise. She gave him a reason to heal. The real shift came when a transport arrived carrying refugees from a war-torn system. Among them were several small dragon-like creatures called the Cinder Clan, scaled and winged, but only about the size of large dogs. They had been rescued from a bombed-out settlement, traumatized and aggressive. The facility's response team wanted to separate them into individual enclosures. Rebecca objected, citing research on their social nature. Administrator Vrel overruled her, declaring the creatures too dangerous to house together. That night, Lily had an idea. What if they stayed near you? She asked Ash. Not in your enclosure, but close enough that you could see each other. Hear each other. You understand what loneliness does. Maybe you could help them. Ash considered this. I know nothing about raising young ones. Was never taught. Neither was I before I got you. We'll figure out together. Rebecca pitched the proposal as a research opportunity. Study the effects of proximate housing on traumatized species. Monitor whether the presence of a larger, calmer dragon-type creature could help rehabilitate the aggressive Cinder Clan. Vrel rejected it immediately. Absolutely not. The specimen D-447 is unstable. Introducing more variables is irresponsible. His name is Ash, Lily said from the doorway. She had followed her mother to the administrator's office. And he's the most stable being in this whole facility because someone finally treated him like he mattered. Vrel's mandibles clicked irritably. This is not a discussion for children. Then stop acting like one, Lily shot back. Rebecca tried to shush her, but Lily pressed on. You're scared. Of Ash, of change, of admitting you were wrong. My dad used to say that courage is doing the right thing even when you're afraid. Ash showed courage by trusting us after years of hurt. Can't you be brave enough to trust him back? The office went silent. Vrel's compound eyes glittered with something that might have been shame. 1 week, he finally said. Trial period. Any sign of aggression and the experiment ends. The Cinder Clan arrived in the adjacent enclosure 2 days later, hissing and snapping at anyone who came close. They huddled in the furthest corner, trembling. Ash watched them through the transparent divider. Then, slowly, he began to hum. A deep, resonant sound that vibrated through the walls. An old song, perhaps, carried an instinct rather than memory. Point one by one, the Cinder Clan stopped shaking. They crept closer to the divider, drawn to the sound of something familiar in a universe that had become terrifying. Lily held her breath as the smallest one pressed its nose against the barrier from one side, while Ash gently touched the same spot from his side. Family is not just who raises you, Ash said quietly. Is who refuses to let you face fear alone. Lily smiled through tears. See? You understand it perfectly. The video went viral across 3 sectors of the galaxy. Lily had recorded it on her tablet without really thinking about the consequences. Just Ash humming his deep song while the Cinder Clan pressed against the barrier. The smallest one chirping responses like a child learning to speak. She posted it to the Galactic Conservation Network with a simple caption. This is what happens when you treat creatures with love instead of fear. Within a week, it had been viewed 18 million times. Comments flooded in from across known space. Conservation groups demanded investigations. News services requested interviews. And the Galactic Conservation Coalition sent a tribunal to evaluate the facility. Administrator Vrel was furious. You have endangered this entire operation with your sentimental interference. The tribunal will shut us down. Rebecca stood her ground in his office. Then maybe this operation deserves to be shut down. The only thing we endangered was your ability to continue neglecting the beings in your care. The tribunal arrived on a gray morning. 3 evaluators, Dr. Sarah Kim, a human conservationist with kind eyes and recording equipment, Professor Tolf, a severe academic from species that resembled walking mantises, and Mediator June, a floating energy being who communicated through translated light pulses. They spent 2 days reviewing records, interviewing staff, and inspecting facilities. On the 3rd day, they came to evaluate Ash. Lily was not allowed in the observation room. She pressed her face against the corridor window, watching as the tribunal studied Ash through multiple screens and sensors. Specimen displays significant physical recovery, Tolf noted in a clicking voice. However, psychological stability remains questionable. History shows violent tendencies. Those incidents occurred under extreme distress, Dr. Kim countered. Look at the recent data. Since proper care began, there has not been a single aggressive episode. Correlation is not causation. The creature may simply be biding time. Ash sat calmly in his enclosure, aware he was being judged, but uncertain what was expected. Through the intercom, Mediator June's translated voice asked, "Do you understand why we are here?" "Yes," Ash replied. "You decide if I am worth keeping alive." The bluntness seemed to surprise them. Tolf's antennae twitched. "You understand your situation is precarious?" "Have always understood. Was told many times that I am a problem. Too violent. Too expensive. Too dangerous. But Lily taught me that worth is not determined by others' fear. Is determined by choices made when given chance." "And what choices would you make?" Dr. Kim asked gently. Ash looked toward the adjacent enclosure where the Cinder Clan played. "Would choose to help others who suffer as I suffered. Would choose to learn what was stolen from me. Would choose to prove that damaged things can heal if someone cares enough to help." The evaluation continued for hours. Lily paced the corridor, her mother standing silent vigil beside her. Finally, Rebecca's communicator buzzed. "Emergency in the south wing. Fire." They ran. Smoke billowed from the Cinder Clan's enclosure. Someone had left maintenance equipment too close to a heat lamp. The bedding had ignited, and the fire suppression system malfunctioned. The young creatures were trapped, screaming in panic as flames spread. The heat-resistant barriers, designed to contain fires, had locked down automatically. Nobody could get in. The Cinder Clan would suffocate before the override codes could be authorized. Lily did not think. She just ran toward the emergency access panel. "Lily, no." Rebecca grabbed for her daughter, but Lily was already through, slamming her hand on the manual release that would open the barrier for exactly 30 seconds before safety protocols forced it shut again. The heat hit her like a physical blow. Smoke burned her lungs. She could barely see the Cinder Clan huddled in the far corner, too terrified to move toward the exit. Then something massive moved past her. Ash had broken through the barrier between his enclosure and the adjacent one, tearing through reinforced material with strength born of desperation. His scales, naturally resistant to heat, glowed in the firelight. He shouldered through the flames, creating a path with his body. Lily stumbled after him, trusting completely that he would protect her. The Cinder Clan saw him, and instinct overrode fear. They scrambled toward the large dragon, who hummed his calming song even as fire licked at his scales. Ash herded them toward the exit, using his bulk to shield them from the worst of the heat. The smallest one froze, paralyzed with terror. Lily scooped it up despite her mother's screams from outside, clutching the trembling creature to her chest that a support beam cracked above them. Ash looked up, calculated trajectories with frightening speed, and made a choice. He reared up, catching the falling beam on his back with a sound like thunder. His legs buckled under the weight, but he held long enough for Lily to run past with the last cinder, long enough for the others to clear the danger zone. Then he collapsed. The tribunal watched everything through security feeds. They saw Ash break his own restraints to save the young ones. They saw him shield a human child with his body. They saw him nearly die protecting creatures he barely knew. When the medical team finally extracted Ash from the burned enclosure, his scales were cracked and bleeding. His breathing was labored. Burns covered his back where the beam had rested. But his eyes found Lily in the crowd, and something that might have been a smile crossed his face. Protected, he whispered, "Family." Dr. Kim wiped tears from her face. "I have seen enough." The tribunal convened in emergency session. Lily sat outside the conference room, soot-stained and exhausted, holding her mother's hand. Inside, voices rose and fell in argument. Finally, the door opened. Mediator June floated out, their light pulsing and with a translator rendered as satisfaction. The tribunal is unanimous. Specimen D, 447, hereby designated Ash, has demonstrated exceptional intelligence, emotional capacity, and selflessness. All recommendations for euthanasia are permanently rescinded. Furthermore, we are mandating a complete restructuring of this facility's protocols. Talth emerged next. Their severe expression softened slightly. "I was wrong. The creature is not dangerous. He is extraordinary. Doktor, Kim Kinat Besidilidi. You saved him, and he saved you. That is what family does." Lily's smile was brighter than the facility's artificial sun. "Can I see him? He's asking for you. The medical team says his recovery will be faster if you're near." As Lily ran toward the medical wing, Rebecca heard Administrator Vrell's angry voice from the conference room, demanding explanations. She did not care. Let him be angry. Let him face consequences for his negligence. Her daughter had proven something the galaxy needed to learn. That love was stronger than fear, and that the most damaged souls often had the greatest capacity for heroism. Ash's recovery took 3 weeks. During that time, the facility transformed. The tribunal's investigation revealed decades of systematic neglect, not just of Ash, but across multiple species. Administrator Vrell was removed from his position, facing charges of ethical violations and criminal negligence. The Church staff who had mistreated Ash were banned from conservation work, and Rebecca Bennett, somewhat to her own surprise, was offered the director position. She accepted on one condition: full autonomy to redesign the facility according to actual best practices instead of bureaucratic convenience. "The first thing we are doing," she announced to the assembled staff on her first day, "is treating every being here as an individual with needs, not a specimen with a number. That starts with names." Lily helped. She spent hours in the various enclosures, talking to creatures and finding names that felt right. The Cinder Clan became River, Spark, Cloud, Ember, and Dawn. A crystalline being became Prism. A telepathic plant creature became Whisper, but her focus remained on Ash. His medical bay had been converted into something more like a home. The walls displayed projected images of landscapes from different worlds. Soft cushions replaced the cold floor. And most importantly, one wall was entirely transparent, looking into the new habitat being constructed for him. It will have open sky access, Dr. Patel explained, showing Lily the plans. Modified gravity in sections for flight practice. Temperature zones he can move between. Social spaces where the Cinder Clan can visit. Everything a dragon needs to actually live, not just survive. Lily showed the plans to Ash. His eyes, now bright crimson instead of the dull gray she had first seen, studied every detail. Is too much. Is more than I deserve. It is exactly what you deserve. It is what you should have had from the beginning. The video Lily posted had brought unexpected consequences beyond the tribunal. Volunteers flooded the facility's application system. Beings from across the galaxy wanted to help, inspired by the story of a neglected dragon and the girl who refused to abandon him. Among the applicants was someone special, the doctor. Patel brought the news personally. There's an elderly dragon requesting to join our staff. She is from a colony 12 light years away. She saw your video and wants to meet Ash. Lily's heart raced. A real dragon? One who knows dragon things. Her name is Grandmother Smoke. She is arriving next week. When Ash heard, he went very still. Another dragon, he whispered. After all these years, am I ready? What if I am too broken? Too different? You are exactly who you are supposed to be, Lily said firmly. And Grandmother Smoke is coming because she wants to meet you, not some perfect version of you. The day Grandmother Smoke arrived, half the facility gathered to watch. She was ancient, her scales the color of storm clouds, with wings that had carried her through centuries. She moved slowly, with dignity, her eyes sharp and knowing. She looked at Ash for a long moment. Then she spoke in the dragon language, a series of rumbles and harmonic tones that the translators struggled to render into galactic common. You are young. You are damaged. You know nothing of our ways. A pause. But you are kin, and kin is never abandoned. Ash's response was halting, the dragon language foreign to his tongue. I am sorry, I do not know how to be proper dragon. Was raised by machines and cruelty. Grandmother Smoke's expression softened. You were raised by love, at least at the end. The small human. She gave you something more valuable than cultural knowledge. She gave you the understanding that you matter. That is the first lesson of being dragon. We are beings of worth. Over the following weeks, Grandmother Smoke taught Ash everything she could. The language of their people, filled with nuance and history. The traditional songs that carried stories from generation to generation. The proper way to fly, using thermals and wing positioning that came from instinct but needed refinement. Lily watched from below as Ash took his first real flight in the new habitat. His movements were clumsy at first, years of confinement making him uncertain. But Grandmother Smoke flew beside him, patient and encouraging, and gradually his natural grace emerged. The Cinder Clan watched too, chirping excitedly. River, the smallest, tried to imitate Ash's wing movements even though she could not fly yet. They see you as family, Grandmother Smoke told Ash during a rest. The way you protected them bonded them to you. Is the dragon way. We do not abandon those weaker than us. We shelter them. Lily taught me that. Humans understand protection even better than dragons. They are so fragile themselves, yet they guard others fiercely. Your Lily is unusual even among humans. She has the heart of a dragon. One evening, Lily sat with both dragons, watching the artificial sunset paint the domed ceiling in shades of orange and purple. Grandmother Smoke hummed a lullaby that made Lily's eyes heavy, while Ash curled protectively around the girl who had saved him. Grandmother, Ash said quietly, do you think my parents mourned when I was taken? Do you think they wondered what happened to their egg? The old dragon was silent for a moment. I cannot speak for them, but I know that any parent would be proud of what you became despite what was done to you. You learned love without being shown it. You chose kindness after knowing only cruelty. That is the mark of true strength. I had help. Lily showed me the way. Grandmother Smoke looked at the sleeping child. She opened the door. You chose to walk through it. Never diminish your own courage, young one. The facility continued to change. New enclosures were built with input from the creatures themselves. Staff were retrained in empathic care. The approach shifted from containment to community, And at the center of it all was an unlikely family. A dragon who had been discarded, a girl who refused to accept that anyone was beyond saving, and an elder who proved it was never too late to find your people. Lily woke to find Ash watching her with an expression she had learned to read. "What are you thinking about?" "Thinking that I was alone for so long I forgot what it felt like to belong. Now I have you, have Grandmother Smoke, have the Cinder Clan. Have purpose. You were always meant for this. It just took time to get here." Ash rumbled his agreement, a sound that was becoming more and more like laughter. Time and one very stubborn human child. "Hey, I prefer persistent. Is same thing. Is not." Their argument dissolved into giggles and rumbles, while Grandmother Smoke watched with something that might have been hope. The young ones, she thought, would build something better than what came before. The message arrived exactly 1 year after Lily first pressed her face against the viewing panel and saw a broken dragon in the dark. Rebecca read it twice before calling her daughter into the office. Lily came running, now 9 years old and taller than she had been, her hair streaked with purple dye that Grandmother Smoke had declared very dragon-like. "There is news," Rebecca said carefully. "Two pieces, actually." Lily sat, suddenly nervous. Her mother only used that tone for important things. "First, I've been offered a position back on Earth. Head of Xenobiology at the Global Conservation Institute. It is a huge opportunity. Better schools for you. Closer to family. Stability." The unspoken question hung in the air. Lily looked out the window toward the habitat where Ash was teaching the Cinder Clan proper hunting techniques using holographic prey. And the second piece of news: Grandmother Smoke contacted a dragon colony 3 sectors away. They have agreed to accept Ash. He could live among his own kind, learn the culture he was denied. They are offering him a home. Lily's chest tightened. That is good news. Ash deserves that. But I will miss him. We both will. Rebecca pulled her daughter close. Love means wanting what is best for someone, even when it hurts us. Your father taught me that. That evening, Lily found Ash flying lazy circles around the habitat's upper reaches. The Cinder Clan chased his tail, chirping happily. His scales gleamed brilliant crimson and gold now, healthy and strong. He looked like he belonged in ancient legends that he landed when he saw her. Concern immediate. Something is wrong. Can feel it. Not wrong exactly. Just changing. Lily explained both opportunities, forcing herself to stay calm. Mom needs to decide about Earth. And you need to decide about the dragon colony. Ash was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "When I was alone, I thought I wanted nothing except freedom. Then you came and taught me that freedom without connection is just another kind of prison. Now I have family, have purpose. But you deserve better future than this facility can provide. And I deserve to know my heritage. So we are both leaving. Perhaps. Or perhaps we find different way." Ash lowered his head until his eyes were level with hers. "Lily, what is family?" She smiled through threatening tears, recognizing her own teachings reflected back. "Family is people who choose to show up for each other, who protect each other, who refuse to give up on each other. And family can exist across distance. Dad used to travel for work. He'd be gone for weeks. But he was still my dad, still my family. I knew he would always come back." Ash rumbled thoughtfully. "Then perhaps the answer is not choosing one path and abandoning other. Perhaps it's finding a way to walk both paths." Over the next week, Rebecca negotiated something unprecedented. The dragon colony agreed to establish a sister facility on Earth, a cultural exchange program where dragons could live and teach while human scientists studied their unique biology and social structures. Ash would be the first ambassador, splitting his time between learning from other dragons and helping rehabilitate neglected creatures on Earth. Lily would visit during school breaks. They would maintain their bond across the stars. It was not perfect, but it was better than losing each other completely. The day of departure came too quickly. Lily stood in the habitat she had spent a year helping to build, surrounded by creatures who had become family. The Cinder Clan chirped sadly, understanding something was changing. Grandmother Smoke watched with ancient eyes that had seen countless goodbyes. "I am scared," Lily admitted to Ash. "What if you forget about me?" What if the other dragons think our friendship is weird? What if everything changes? Ash wrapped one wing gently around her. Listen carefully. You gave me life when I had only existence. You taught me that being broken does not mean being worthless. You show me what love looks like. How could I ever forget that? How could I forget you? But you will have a real dragon family now. They can give you things I never could. They will give me culture and history and connection to my heritage. These things are important. But you gave me something they cannot. You gave me hope when I believed I had none. You saw me when I was invisible. Different gifts, equally valuable. Grandmother Smoke approached, moving with the care of her great age. The child worries you will outgrow her. Never, Ash said firmly. Good, because she is right that things will change. You will change. She will change. That is the nature of living. But family adapts with change, does not break because of it. The old dragon fixed Lily with a knowing stare. You think love is a fragile thing that must be protected from distance and time. But real love is strongest force in universe. It bends, flexes, grows. It survives. The transport shuttle descended through the atmosphere, coming to take them to different futures. Lily and her mother would head to Earth. Ash would join a convoy to the Dragon Colony for a 6-month immersion before his ambassadorial work began to the landing pad. Surrounded by staff who had become friends, Lily finally broke down. She threw her arms around as much of Ash as she could reach, sobbing into his scales. I love you. You're my best friend. You are my family. Ash's voice rumbled with emotion. And you are mine. Distance does not change that. Time does not change that. You taught me what family really means, Lily. Family is not about who raises you or even who you live with. It is about who refuses to let you face the universe alone. I will never let you face it alone. Promise. Promise. As the shuttles lifted off, Lily watched through the window as Ash performed the silly aerial loop she had taught him in his early flying lessons. A signature move that meant I am still me. I am still yours. Later, when the shuttle broke atmosphere and the stars appeared in full glory, Rebecca found her daughter recording a video message. Hi everyone at the Galactic Conservation Network. This is Lily Bennett. 1 year ago, I met a dragon who had been forgotten by everyone who was supposed to care for him. They saw a problem. I saw someone who needed a friend. Today, Ash is healthy, happy, and about to teach the whole galaxy what humans have always known. That love and family are not about biology or species or even being in the same place. They're about showing up, about choosing each other, about refusing to give up even when it is hard. She paused, collecting her thoughts. My dad died before I came to Draken 7. I thought I lost my family. But Ash taught me that family is something we build, not something that just happens to us. We build it through patience and protection and choosing to see the best in each other. Everyone deserves that chance. Everyone deserves someone who believes they are worth saving. The video ended with footage of Ash soaring alongside other dragons, his scales brilliant in the sun, while Lily's voice concluded, real family always finds its way back home, no matter how far the journey takes us. 6 months later, when Ash arrived on Earth as the Dragon Colony's first ambassador, Lily was waiting at the landing site. He descended from the sky like a crimson comet, performing 3 perfect loops before landing. Missed you, he rumbled, touching his nose to her forehead, and the dragon greeting Grandmother Smoke had taught them both. Missed you too. Ready to save the world together. With you? Always. Around them, a crowd had gathered to witness the first dragon ambassador to Earth. But Ash and Lily barely noticed. They had already saved each other's world. Everything else was just showing other people how it was done. Family, after all, was not about where you started. It was about who walked beside you on the journey forward.